Good morning, everybody, and welcome to this IEC webinar. My name is David Hanlon, and I am the Secretary of the IEC Conformity Assessment Board. And this webinar is titled, Want to Create Global Value? Talk to the BizL. The objective of the webinar is to discuss how standards and the IEC Global Conformity Assessment Services work together to create value for consumers, manufacturers, governments, and many others. Wherever worldwide consistency of safety and quality are desired, the world's best practice used within the IEC Global Conformity Assessment Services can be applied. If your industry or market sector would benefit from consistent worldwide certification, then talk to the BizL. During this presentation, if you have any questions, please write them down into the section questions of the GoToWebinar control panel. We will then address those questions at the end of the presentation. Helping me today to address those questions are Mark Amos and Ian Fort. So let's get on with the presentation. The IEC is, of course, the International Electrotechnical Commission. Most people know the IEC as an international standards development organization. And it's true that IEC has been developing international standards since 1906. What is less known, however, is that the IEC has a second major activity. Since 1974, IEC has been operating worldwide global certification services, starting with electrotechnical components. Standards with specific quality and performance requirements for products and services are of little value by themselves. Value is only created when it can be demonstrated that the requirements have been fulfilled. Conformity assessment is used to demonstrate that conformity has been achieved to the standard. In this way, standards and conformity assessment are like two sides of a coin. Neither side has value without the other side. Only together do standards and conformity assessment create value. As we all know, for products and services, standards are useful for creating a baseline of minimum safety, quality, and performance. Hence the term substandard to communicate low or even dangerous quality. All of this is true for conformity assessment. Conformity assessment is essentially a service which, like all services, can benefit from being standardized. Conformity assessment is testing, calibration, inspection, assessment, certification, and so on. Different types of conformity assessment can be performed by different parties. Conformity assessment can be performed by the manufacturer or supplier themselves. This is first-party conformity assessment. In this case, a manufacturer or supplier makes a declaration of conformity, which is known as a supplier's declaration of conformity, or SDoC. Conformity assessment can be performed by the customer or the end user. For example, in industry, this is done for incoming quality control. This is called second-party conformity assessment, and we all do this each time we purchase a product, take it home, and test it. We are doing informal second-party conformity assessment, usually not to formal requirements, but rather to our own personal satisfaction. Then there is, of course, conformity assessment performed by independent professional organizations. They are independent of the manufacturer and supplier and of the customer and end user. They are like a judge in a court case giving an impartial decision. This is third-party conformity assessment and often involves certification. The IEC has 4 global conformity assessment systems. the IECEE for home, office, medical, manufacturing, public spaces, smart grid, electric vehicles, and so on. IECEx for all verification needs of the EX industry or explosive atmospheres sector. IECQ for electronic components and supplier quality management. And IECRE for renewable energy in the wind energy, marine energy, and PV solar energy sectors. All of these global CA services were developed and implemented because they were requested by the specific market sectors. It is those market sectors that pay for those services, and they do that because they obtain value from those services. The IECEE is a global CA system for electrotechnical goods. Its main and very long-running scheme is the CB scheme, and its main market driver is facilitating access to markets for manufacturers and suppliers. The IEC has recently established a global conformity assessment service for cybersecurity, and IEC is working with the United Nations Economic Committee for Europe, the UNECE, to create a United Nations Common Regulatory Objectives Guidelines document based on the IECEE cybersecurity activities. This is because these activities are considered to be the world's best practice at this time. The CB scheme creates value for manufacturers and for governments. The first and main market driver for the CB scheme is quicker and easier access to foreign markets for manufacturers' products. Under the CB scheme, their products only need to be tested once, and then the test result is recognized in all participating countries. Recognition of the test result then allows access to the foreign market. The alternative is testing in each country with months of lost sales and lost market share. Other market drivers for manufacturers have also arisen, such as risk management for their products. Having their products certified shares the risk if something goes wrong. Another market driver is suppliers' qualification. For example, retailers may require products from unknown brand suppliers to certify their products before they will put them on their shelves. For governments, the CB scheme has two benefits. It ensures that products entering its market are safe for use, and it can help domestic manufacturers find foreign markets and thus assist in the economic development of their country. The recent cybersecurity certification services create value for asset owners by protecting their business. They create value for governments by protecting critical infrastructure, and they create value for manufacturers by providing easier access to foreign markets for products and services. The IECEx is a global CA system for explosive environments. It runs these four schemes. IECEx addresses all verification needs of the explosive atmosphere industry. It covers design, planning, installation, inspection, maintenance, and repair, and the assessment of the competence of personnel working in this highly specialized area. In 2011, the United Nations Economic Committee for Europe, the UNECE, published its Common Regulatory Objectives Model for the EX sector and endorsed the IECEx as the world's best practice. The IECEx Global Conformity Assessment Services create value for asset owners, governments, and manufacturers. The IECEx Global CA Services protect asset owners' business and their investment in their infrastructure. They also protect against risk of harm to people and even death, and against harm to the environment. The IECEx Global CA services provide value to governments by lowering the risk of harm to its population and to the environment, by protecting critical infrastructure and thereby protecting the local or national economy and facilitating its development. The IECEx Global CA services also provide value to manufacturers by providing faster and easier access to foreign markets for their products, risk management, and supplier qualification. The IECQ is a global conformity assessment service for supply chain qualification in the electronic sector. IECQ helps industry, including, for example, the LED or LED lighting industry, the automotive industry, and the avionics industry to efficiently manage their electronic components supply chain. We all travel around the world in aircraft that is made safer because of the IECQ. The IECQ creates value for the suppliers of electronic components, assemblies, and services, and the IECQ creates value for the customers of those suppliers who use those components, assemblies, and services to manufacture electronic and electrotechnical products. The main market driver for the IECQ Global CA service is to lower the cost for supplier qualification. It is a business-to-business service. In the past, an electronic product manufacturer would have to audit multiple suppliers before choosing one or two. This was time-consuming and costly, especially if the supplier was on the other side of the world. The component suppliers also had to be audited by multiple potential customers, which also cost them time and took them away from their core business. And what was worse was that once they had been selected as a supplier by different customers, they had to adopt multiple different quality management requirements according to each customer. This, of course, was very inefficient for their operations. The IECQ suppliers certification imposes one harmonized quality management system and requires that the supplier only be audited by one body, although regular surveillance audits are also part of the certification process. Having an IECQ supplier certification helps component suppliers access more markets. Other IECQ Global CA services, such as the Hazardous Substances Process Management Scheme, or the HSPM, provide value to both governments and asset owners by protecting populations and the environment from dangerous substances. This HSPM scheme also helps manufacturers limit their risk of hazardous substances entering their supply chain. IECQ supplier qualification allow both the component supplier and the product manufacturer to save time, money, and allows them to concentrate on their core business. The IECRE is a global CA system for renewable energy and covers the sectors of wind energy, marine energy, and solar photovoltaic energy. The market driver in the renewable energy sector is financial risk management. Anticipated investment in renewable energies over the next 30 years is in the trillions of dollars. Renewable energy projects are very big, very costly projects. They are very long-term investments with a very long-term return on investment. Investors and insurers wish to limit the investment risk by applying the world's best practices. The IEC Global Conformity Assessment services are considered as the world's best practices. So the main market driver for the IECRE Global CA services comes from financial investors and insurers, and the value that the IECRE Global CA service provide to them is better financial risk management. This is the main market driver, but there are also others. IECRE certification also provides easier and faster access to foreign markets for OEM suppliers. IECRE certification also provides assurance to governments for their investment of taxpayers' money in renewable energy projects and the economic development that this can bring to their countries. A future benefit that will bring value to the asset owners of wind farms and solar PV farms and so on will be to have their ongoing management, maintenance and operational practices audited, assessed and certified in order to reduce insurance premiums. So all of the IEC CA systems are based on market drivers. All of the IEC CA services are responding to market needs. Those needs are in a global, worldwide context. The services have been requested by the various market sectors. The services are paid for by the various market sectors because those market sectors see and believe they are getting value for their money. The question then can be asked, can the IEC Global CA services bring value to your market sector? The next part of this webinar, we are going to look at how the IEC CA system creates value and therefore why they are considered to be a world's best practice. The IEC Global CA systems create a framework into which professional certification bodies, testing laboratories, inspection bodies, auditing bodies, and so on from around the world come to work together in a team structure. IEC does not do testing or certification itself. Rather, it is the professional bodies that do this. This is very similar to the way in which standards are developed by both IEC and ISO. Neither organization actually writes technical standards themselves. Rather, it is the subject matter experts from around the world who come and participate in the standards development process who actually write the standards. The fundamental value of the IEC Global CA systems that the IEC CA systems create is consistent and comparable conformity assessment results from anywhere in the world. This is achieved through two activities. Firstly, all the participants come together to determine a common understanding and interpretation of the standards, which they document, as well as a common rules and methodologies for testing and assessment. Secondly, they conduct peer assessment to ensure that the common interpretation is understood correctly, and more importantly, that the common rules and methodologies are actually being applied. This achieves consistent, comparable CA results worldwide. You may then ask, what is the role of accreditation? Accreditation is simply a national authority recognizing that a conformity assessment body, or a CAB, has the competency to issue meaningful test reports and or certificates for a specific scope of work. Accreditation is always national, but is sometimes recognized across borders. In countries where there is doubt about the value of certificates, or where there is or can be doubt about the quality and competency of a body issuing a certificate, then accreditation is an added assurance and confidence builder that the certificate does in fact have value. Accreditation is a way of checking the checkers. Accreditation is national. Within a country, a nation, a national accreditation body, or NAB, is appointed. The NAB has authority to accredit conformity assessment bodies, such as testing laboratories and certification bodies. Once accredited, the conformity assessment results must be recognized by the national authority. A conformity assessment body can be accredited in its own country or accredited by a NAB from another country. In this case, the CA results for the scope of work that is accredited must be recognized by the corresponding national authorities in respective countries. The work of a conformity assessment body may cover a wide range of scopes. Accreditation may cover multiple scopes of work. Strictly speaking, it is therefore incorrect to speak about an accredited laboratory or an accredited certification body, but rather a laboratory accredited for a scope of work, and so on. The CA results covered under the accreditation scope must be recognized by the national authority of the national accreditation bodies that accredited them. But the CA results that are not covered under the accredited scope do not have to be recognized by the national authority. Although accreditation has its value, it also has its limitations. In the real world, standards are not perfect. They are consensus-based, and therefore they often have wiggle room. This means that conformity assessment results can depend on interpretation of the standard. They can also depend on the experience of an assessor and to the choice by the CAB of testing or inspection methodology, and so on. Therefore, in the real world, third-party testing and inspection and certification is not consistent and comparable. In the real world, there are competent CABs that interpret standards too strongly. There are competent CABs that interpret standards too weakly. There are competent CABs that interpret standards correctly. There are incompetent CABs, and there are fraudulent CABs. Accreditation should filter out those CABs that are incompetent and fraudulent, but it will have no effect on the inconsistent results coming from the various interpretations and applications of the standards. Accreditation is national and is applied to conformity assessment bodies as individual entities. Accreditation is not applied to CABs operating in groups, whether the group is within the same company or whether the group is formed by different commercial entities. To achieve consistent results across different CABs that are operating together in a group, it requires more than accreditation. In this respect, accreditation creates no added value to achieving consistent results within a group of CABs. Accreditation is national. Within a country, the national accreditation body most often applies its accreditation process in a consistent way. Therefore, within a country, two CABs accredited for the same scope of work will most often be competent to the same degree. However, between nations, the accreditation process can be very different. This means that the competency of a CAB in one country can be very different from the competency of a CAB in another country, even though they are both accredited for the same scope of work within their own countries. This variance reduces confidence in the results coming from CABs in other countries. Accreditation is analogous to driving tests. The driving requirements to obtain a driver's license in one country can be very different from the requirements in another country. But even if the competencies of the drivers may be very different, in the end, they both have national driver's licenses. There is no such thing as international accreditation. Accreditation is national. However, National authorities can choose to recognize CA results from CABs in other countries if they have confidence that those CABs are competent. If those CABs are accredited and if the national accreditation processes are equivalent, then the confidence in the CA results can be higher. ILAC, the International Laboratory Accreditation Corporation, and IAF, the International Accreditation Forum, are two organizations that are working towards the goal of achieving consistent accreditation methods across the national accreditation bodies of different countries. Global harmonized accreditation would add value by making the process of accreditation audits more consistent and universally applied in different countries, which would result in more consistent levels of competency and therefore more consistent and comparable CA results. The ultimate goal is that certificates and test reports issued in different nations will be recognized in other nations. Using the driver's license analogy, this is like trying to have the same driving test requirements in all countries. But having the same driving test in each country will not make all drivers drive the same way on the same roads. This is the reality of accreditation. It also shows where the IEC Global CA Systems create value beyond accreditation. The approach taken by the IEC Global CA Systems is to train all the drivers to drive the same way on the same roads. The IEC Global CA Systems achieve consistent, comparable CA results worldwide. This is why the IEC Global CA Systems are considered to be a world's best practice. Accreditation is an essential element in the world of conformity assessment. It is the basis for recognizing competency within a country and therefore recognizing a result. Accreditation can be likened to qualification for individual activities. A good example is a musician. Accreditation would check if they have an instrument. Can they read music and can they play the music correctly? Accreditation would not check the choice of music to play, nor the tempo or style in which it is played. On the other hand, peer assessment is all about qualifying for team activities. Again, for a musician, the basic ability to play an instrument must of course be present. But to play in an orchestra and make beautiful music together requires much more. It requires the ability to play with other musicians in the orchestra the same music in a harmonized way, in accordance with the rhythm and instructions of the conductor. Each musician needs to be confident in the abilities of the other musicians. To achieve this, musicians go through auditions where musicians check musicians, or in other words, they do peer assessment. That's what creates the confidence and allows them to play as a team. As we have seen, accreditation is national. A national authority recognizes the CA result from a conformity assessment body that has been accredited by its national accreditation body. ILAC and IAF try to achieve global harmonized accreditation auditing. ILAC and IAF use peer assessment by the NABs, by the national accreditation bodies, to ensure consistent accreditation across nations. Their objective is to reduce the wiggle room, the variation in the accreditation process from one country to another. IEC does the same, but directly at the level of the CABs. The IEC objective is to get consistent conformity assessment results no matter from where they come in the world. This is essential for the success of the IEC Multilateral Mutual Recognition Agreement. Both ILAC, IAF, and IEC are trying to achieve the same result of mutual recognition of conformity assessment results and therefore of acceptance of foreign products to domestic markets. The way ILAC and IAF go about trying to achieve this is through consistent accreditation across countries. If the cabs are equally accredited, then the theory goes that their results should be of equal value and therefore equally believable. Therefore, the national authority should accept the results from other countries. The IEC approach is that it is the cabs themselves who accept the CA results coming from other participating cabs in other countries. And because they are accredited, their national authority must accept the judgment. The reason that a cab in one country will accept the results from a participating cab in another country is because the IEC CA system operational model ensures that all the cabs are doing the work in the same way and would get the same result if they did it themselves. Again, using the driver's license analogy, ILAC and IAF are trying to get consistent and harmonized driving tests. This is good, but it will not get drivers to drive the same way on the same roads. The IEC CA Systems goal is to directly train the drivers to drive in the same way. For the IEC CA systems, mutual recognition only has value if those doing the recognizing are themselves recognized within their own country. National accreditation is a recognition of competency and a guarantee that the results issued will be recognized in the country. If a nationally accredited body then recognizes the results from a foreign body, this is the doorway to that national market. The IEC helps industry get access to foreign markets. It does this by operating international certification schemes. Products are tested and services assessed by commercial conformity assessment bodies anywhere in the world, and the results are recognized everywhere in the world. An IEC CA system certificate is like a passport to the world. So we have seen that the IEC Global CA systems already provide these types of certification services in specific domains. We have also seen that the value created is consistent, comparable, and believable conformity assessment results from anywhere in the world. The question can again be asked, can the IEC global services bring value to your market sector? To find this out, you should talk to the BizL. The BizL is the Future Business Master Watch List. It is a forward-looking radar used to identify and track potential new global conformity assessment services that could be provided by the IEC. If a market sector has needs, or if they could gain benefit from global CA services, then they only need to contact the BizL and open a dialogue. Together, we will understand the issues. Together, we will decide if global services are appropriate or not. Together, we will define and incubate the necessary services. Together, we will choose the best time to launch those services. And together, we will create value for your market sector. The current BizL list can be found on the IEC website in the standing documents section of the CAB webpage. This is the rather unfortunate URL. Currently, the BizL has identified about 30 potential areas where value could be created from global conformity assessment services. These include expanding the existing cybersecurity services, CA services for physical security products, LVDC applications, services for wearables, services for products with radio functions and IoT devices, and so on. If your market space could benefit from world market access, worldwide consistent product quality, protection of infrastructure investment, financial investment risk management, greater choice of higher quality products, services or suppliers, obtaining approved supplier status, legitimization for government subsidies, and much more, then talk to the BizL. Whatever the business drivers may be in your market sector, if your needs are at the international level, then the BizL can help you. The BizL is the forward-looking radar and is the first step towards establishing an IEC Global certification scheme. Contact us and open a dialogue. This could lead to many opportunities to help your market sector to grow. So thank you. That is the end of the presentation section. And I now invite the panel speakers to open their mics so that they can also speak to us. I believe we have Ian that is available to talk.
Correct.
Excellent. Ian is in Australia and will respond to any questions that you may now have. Please, if you have questions, note them into the questions section. I see we have no questions at this time, but I will ask a question to Ian. Ian, you are coming from a manufacturer of household products. Your company uses the IECEE CB scheme, and can you tell us about why you do that and why that scheme is useful for the market sector in which you're in?
Yes, thanks, David. It's true. I work for a company that produces appliances globally. So we have market penetration essentially throughout the world, and without standardization, of course, we would not be able to operate efficiently, but without conformity assessment, we would not be able to sell our products globally. So the IECEE scheme has a testing and certification regime which provides CB certificates which ensure that our products are tested consistently to the same standards, and through the accreditation and peer assessment processes, we have confidence when we receive those CB certificates that the product will be in compliance with the standards that they've been designed to. So throughout the world, the regulatory authorities in each country demand proof that the products are indeed compliant to these standards, and the CB certificates are really, as David said, the passport to ensuring that that is the case. So if, for example, we have a refrigerator made in Thailand, where we have a large factory, the product is tested to the IEC 60335 standard, the relevant standard, and certified with a CB certificate that it meets all those requirements. That essentially means that we can sell it anywhere from Europe, anywhere in Europe, Africa, Australia, South America, and even to some extent in North America, although because of the specific requirements in North America, there are always some additional requirements there. But without the CB scheme, we would be struggling to sell our products globally. It would be a situation where we'd have to test products to individual requirements for each country, and the efficiency and the cost of these products, the efficiency of manufacture and therefore the cost of these products would become prohibitive. So it's an excellent scheme. Now that's a very, very basic scheme, but the BizL allows people who are looking at new types of products or services to engage with IEC and develop ultimately similar systems to that CB one. So in summary, the CB certificate scheme operated by the IECEE is an absolutely essential part of our business and in fact certainly household appliance manufacturers globally. Thanks, David.
So that's some comments from a user of the scheme and the reasons that they use this scheme. Now, again, all of the services, the conformity assessment services that the IEC have put in place have been put in place because of market demand. The market, as the presentation stated, there were different market drivers for each of the different schemes and systems that have been put in place. And they range from obtaining access to foreign markets, as Ian just talked about, to things such as protecting critical infrastructure, protecting people and the environment, to protecting investment and by financial investment. Certainly that is the case in the terms of the IECRE for renewable energy. These are very big projects, very costly long-term investments, and the investors and the insurers want to protect their investment, and so they have requested that the IEC put in place this scheme for renewable energies, which is considered to be a world's best practice at this time. We have had discussions and are currently holding discussions with some different sectors. For example, I give the example of the wearables. You know, of course, wearables are clothing, but also appliances that we actually wear on our body in the future, maybe even some that we swallow. But certainly those sorts of and some of the services also that are being provided or will be provided in the future for assistant living are services that will be subsidized by taxpayers' money. And so in order to ensure that the products and the services themselves are legitimate and actually supplying the quality and the performance that is required to then justify the subsidies from taxpayers' money, there is discussion about a new service for those sorts of products and services, a new global conformity assessment scheme for those sorts of products and services to ensure that the quality and performance is there, and therefore that the subsidies from taxpayers' monies is justified. So this is another potential market driver. There are others which we have already spoken about, and it's very interesting within our BizL now to begin to see the different market drivers that are being identified from different market sectors. The question, of course, is whether the service that can be provided has value in an international context, because the services that the IEC provides as an international organization are always in the international, what we call global context. This is why market access or providing risk management for suppliers of products or finding suppliers qualifying suppliers from other countries around the world is a very useful market driver for various sectors. In the presentation at the end, there was a example given about physical security products. This is very important because, of course, cameras, locks, security systems, access systems, all of these sorts of things are now being manufactured all over the world, many in China, because of course China is known as the factory of the world, and these products are then being installed in various other countries all over the world. And of course there have been some voicing of issues of concerning security in that respect, and ensuring that those products are safe and certainly secure and performing the job that they were installed to do, and not doing anything else beyond that is very important. And for the manufacturers of those products, being able to demonstrate that those products are actually performing what they've been asked to do is important for their reputation, and important for their brand, and important for allowing them access to various markets. So this is another potential service that is actually at this time in discussion with that market sector. Ian, do you have anything more you would like to say at this time?
David, I think you summarised things pretty well. The advantage that the IEC has is that it is truly an international organisation and has got penetration absolutely globally. I look at the little screenshot that we have in front of us at the moment, and we can see the arches going from every point in the globe. It is truly remarkable that there is so much consistency and consensus around these issues. And as you say, it's all been market driven. Manufacturers, suppliers, governments have got together and provided a platform under which standardisation and then conformity assessment can thrive, and there is absolutely no doubt it's to the value of everybody on the planet. So, I congratulate the IEC for introducing these CA schemes. It's made my company's business viable globally. Without it, we would be struggling to provide products, on a global scale. So I don't know. Have we had any questions, written questions, David?
Unfortunately, no. Everybody is listening, but nobody has written questions, unfortunately. Of course,
well, that means that everybody's understood pretty well what you've been saying. So, I congratulate you on that. It's been a very comprehensive introduction to conformity assessment and the advantages, finally, of what the BizL can do for everybody.
So if we have no more questions, and I think Ian, you and I have talked quite a lot, we might then close the... yes, we have a question. It says, it's not in fact a question, it's a comment. Thank you very much. It says, yes, clear presentation, hence no question. Thank you. So that's very kind of you to indicate that to us. Of course, this webinar has been recorded and will be available to be listened to and looked at again in the future. And of course, you can contact us here at the IEC if you have any questions in the future. There is another webinar identical to this one this afternoon. This one this morning is mainly for the Eastern Hemisphere, and the one this afternoon will be for the Western Hemisphere. So, you know, if you wish to, if you have any ideas, questions in between times, either send them to us or join again the webinar this afternoon, and that's at 2:30 Geneva time. So wherever you are in the world, you have to figure out the corresponding time for you. Yes, very happy for you to join us again if you wish to this afternoon, but you can always re-listen to this webinar because it is recorded and it will be up on the IEC Academy webinar website within a few days, if not already later today. So thank you very much for having listened and having participated. We may get a few more questions this afternoon, we'll see. But thank you to all of you. Thank you, Ian, and I will say goodbye then, and hopefully hear from you again the next time we have a webinar. Thank you very much.
Thank you, David. Appreciated. Goodbye, everybody.